I never thought high school, or even college, could be this humiliating. I always considered myself confident, maybe even popular enough to blend in without anyone noticing me too much. But then there was Chris. Chris had that magnetic kind of arrogance that made everyone follow his lead, whether they liked it or not. He was the kind of person who could make a joke out of someone else's life and have the entire room laughing while the victim crumbled inside. And for some reason, I had always been his favorite target, not in a violent way, not overtly cruel, but enough to make me feel small, vulnerable, and easily manipulated. It started with small things. He'd tease me about my clothes, my hair, the way I walked. Sometimes he'd make a joke about how soft I looked, or how I would probably look better in a skirt. At first, I laughed along, hoping to hide my embarrassment. But every joke chipped away at my confidence, and, strangely, part of me began to wonder, what if he was right? I'd never considered cross-dressing before. It wasn't a secret fantasy or a curiosity, it simply wasn't on my radar. But Chris had this way of planting ideas in your head, wrapping them in a challenge or a dare, and suddenly I was imagining things I'd never thought about. The day everything changed, I was in the empty classroom after school. Chris had cornered me, smirking, the kind of smile that made your stomach twist and your skin crawl at the same time. "You know, you could be really pretty," he said, leaning casually against the desk. "I bet if you actually tried, you could be the cutest girl in school." I blinked, not sure whether to be insulted or confused. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He laughed softly, a low, teasing sound. "I'm talking about you, dressed up, acting, feminine. Let's see if you have what it takes." I froze. My mind raced. This was a joke, right? A dare? Some stupid challenge to humiliate me in front of our classmates? But Chris didn't seem to be joking. His eyes sparkled with that dangerous mix of amusement and authority, and I felt an odd flutter in my chest. You can't be serious," I said, trying to back away, but he blocked my path. "Oh, I'm serious," he said. "And you're going to do it. Or, well, let's just say you won't like the consequences." My stomach sank. He didn't need to say more, his power was enough. I knew that if I refused, he'd make life miserable for me for weeks, maybe months. Somehow, reluctantly, fear and curiosity mingling, I agreed. "Fine," I muttered. "I'll do it." Chris's grin widened. "Good. I'll help you. Sort of, guide you. By the end of this, you'll be my perfect little girl. You'll see." I wanted to protest, to argue, to tell him I'd never go along with something so humiliating. But the truth was, my mind had already started spinning with possibilities. What would it feel like? What if I actually looked good? What if there was a thrill hidden in all of this? The first step was simple, or at least, that's what Chris said. He handed me a bag. Inside were skirts, blouses, tights, and a wig, all neatly folded, as if waiting for me to step into them. My heart hammered, a mix of fear, shame, and inexplicable excitement flooding me. "Put it on," he said softly. "Trust me. You'll like it." I hesitated, glancing at the pile of clothes. They weren't my style, never had been. And yet, as I touched the fabrics, felt the softness of the blouse, the silky smoothness of the tights, I felt a strange curiosity growing inside me. My pulse quickened. Part of me wanted to run, to refuse, to never look at these things again. But another part, an unspoken, hidden part, wanted to see what it would be like. Chris watched me, eyes sharp, guiding without touching, a master of the situation. Every instruction, every nudge, felt like a mix of control and encouragement. I swallowed hard, heart racing, as I slowly began to change, first the blouse, then the skirt, then the tights, finally the wig. The soft fabric brushed against my skin in ways I had never imagined. I could feel my posture shifting instinctively, shoulders relaxing, hips swaying, movements softening. I looked in the mirror, heart hammering. My reflection was almost unrecognizable, softer, more delicate, feminized. The face staring back at me had my eyes, my features, but something entirely different. Vulnerable. Beautiful. Terrifying. Chris stepped closer, smirking. "See? I told you. You're perfect. My little girl." I wanted to argue, to protest, to pull the wig off and strip the clothes from my body. But I couldn't. The reflection in the mirror held me captive, a mixture of fear and thrill that I had never experienced. My heart raced, my stomach twisted, and somewhere deep down, a tiny voice whispered, "Maybe, this feels right." And that's when I realized the truth. This wasn't just a dare. This wasn't just a prank. Chris had turned me into something new, something feminized, something delicate, something his. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But part of me wanted to stay. And in that quiet, tense classroom, with only Chris watching, my journey into my girly transformation truly began. The days after that first session with Chris were a blur of conflicting emotions. Every morning I woke up with a mixture of dread and anticipation. My mind kept replaying the moment I looked in the mirror, feminized and vulnerable, and felt that strange thrill twisting inside me. I couldn't shake it. Part of me hated what was happening, but another part craved it. Chris didn't just let it be. He guided me carefully, setting challenges and instructions like a master with a student. Every time I met him, he would critique my posture, my gestures, the way I walked, the way I held myself. "Your shoulders, Jordan. Relax them. Feminine grace is in your movement, not your words." His words were sharp, authoritative, yet strangely intoxicating. I found myself obeying instinctively, adjusting my stance, smoothing my skirt, even practicing subtle curves as I walked. He introduced me to clothing, accessories, and makeup that I'd never dared to consider. Silk blouses, soft skirts, tights that hugged my legs, heels that forced me to adjust my balance, each item a small test of endurance and vulnerability. And makeup, oh, makeup, Chris insisted I learn it properly. Contour, blush, eyeliner, mascara, lipstick. At first, I was clumsy. My hands shook, smudging foundation across my cheeks, mascara streaking my lashes. But Chris never let me give up. "Mistakes are part of learning. Now, try again, Jordan. This time, imagine you're a girl confident enough to turn heads." I hated him for it. I hated how every lesson made me feel exposed, delicate, submissive. And yet, as I looked in the mirror, practicing my smile and tilting my chin the way he had taught me, I realized something terrifying. I was starting to like it. My posture softened, my movements became smoother, my voice grew higher and gentler with each rehearsal. The person I saw in the mirror was not entirely me, yet not entirely foreign. At school, I had to act normal, walking the hallways in my usual clothes, interacting with classmates without revealing a trace of the transformation. But every glance in a reflective surface, a window, a mirror, even my phone screen, reminded me of the feminized version of myself Chris had been shaping. I caught myself practicing subtle gestures in secret, a hand brush of my hair, a delicate crossing of my legs while sitting, softening my voice when speaking to friends. Chris's control wasn't just about clothing or makeup. It was psychological. He would issue challenges, pushing me further with every encounter. "Today, you're going to walk through the cafeteria in heels," he would say casually. "No hiding. Every eye on you. Own it." The first time I did it, my knees trembled. The cafeteria was packed. Students noticed, whispered, stared. I felt like I was floating, every step a mixture of terror and exhilaration. My heels clicked softly against the linoleum, and I could hear Chris's approving smile in my mind. Every movement, every glance, every breath felt amplified. I was caught between shame and an adrenaline-fueled excitement that made my pulse race. But it wasn't just public humiliation. Chris's lessons extended into private encounters that made me question my own identity. Late in the evening, he would come to the empty classroom or a secluded spot in the school building. He'd have new outfits, new instructions, even new techniques for walking, gesturing, speaking like a girl. He would watch me try on a skirt or wig, correct the tilt of my head, the sway of my hips, the softness of my smile. And I obeyed. Every correction, every command, made me more aware of how thoroughly he was reshaping me. I started to notice subtle physical changes too. My body seemed to respond to the constant practice, my posture softening naturally, my gestures more delicate even when I wasn't thinking about it. My voice, once low and confident, took on a higher, more melodic tone without effort. It was like Chris had unlocked a version of me I hadn't known existed, and I was powerless to resist. Every night, I would retreat to my room, trying to process what was happening. I would touch my feminized features, run my hands over the curve of my hips, the softness of my skin, the delicate arch of my fingers. Fear, shame, and excitement tangled inside me, creating a tension that was almost unbearable. I wanted to stop. I wanted to fight it. And yet, I couldn't help but crave it, crave the soft fabrics, the feel of makeup on my skin, the thrill of imagining eyes on me, admiring, noticing. One evening, Chris pushed me further than ever before. "Jordan," he said, voice low, commanding, "I want you to spend an entire day dressed as a girl outside of school. No hiding. You'll go to the store, the park, wherever. Own it. Learn what it feels like to truly be seen." I froze. The thought of being in public, fully feminized, terrified me. Every nerve in my body screamed, "No. Don't do it." But a part of me, the part Chris had awakened, quivered with excitement. My hands shook as I slipped into the outfit he had prepared, a soft blouse, a flowing skirt, tights, and heels that challenged my balance. He adjusted my wig carefully, smoothing every strand, and applied makeup to enhance my features perfectly. "You look perfect," he said, stepping back. "Go. Show the world your new self." I stepped out into the evening, every sound amplified, every eye a potential threat. My heels clicked softly on the sidewalk, my heart hammering. Passers-by glanced at me, some curious, some indifferent. But every step was a test, every movement a challenge to my confidence and identity. By the time I returned home, I was trembling, exhilarated, and exhausted. The experience had been terrifying, but it had also been intoxicating. I realized then that my transformation wasn't just physical. Chris had reshaped me emotionally, mentally, completely. I didn't know where it would end, or if I wanted it to. Every lesson, every challenge, every command from him drew me deeper into this feminized existence. Fear and excitement intertwined, and I couldn't tell which was stronger anymore. And as I lay in bed that night, heels still aching, cheeks flushed from the day's experiences, I understood one terrifying truth. Chris wasn't just my bully anymore. He was my master. And I was completely, irrevocably, his creation. The day Chris chose wasn't random. That's what scared me the most. It was the school's annual open event. Students, teachers, parents, alumni. The hallways buzzed with noise and attention. Too many eyes. Too many chances to be seen. Chris leaned close to me that morning, voice calm, almost gentle. "Today," he said, "you stop hiding." My stomach dropped. I tried to argue. I really did. But the words died in my throat the moment he handed me the outfit. It wasn't outrageous. That was the terrifying part. A soft cardigan. A fitted blouse. A knee-length skirt. Low heels. Hair styled simply. Makeup natural, polished, believable. "You don't look like you're pretending anymore," he said as he adjusted my collar. "You look like you belong." I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked exaggerated, but because I didn't. The girl staring back looked real. And confident. And scared. The moment I stepped into the main hallway, everything slowed. Every sound felt sharper. Every movement felt deliberate. My heels echoed softly against the floor, steady, practiced. My posture adjusted instinctively. Shoulders relaxed. Chin lifted. Hips moving in that subtle rhythm Chris had drilled into me over weeks. People looked. Not in shock. Not in laughter. Just recognition. A teacher smiled politely. A group of students glanced, then looked away. Someone held the door open for me without thinking. And that was worse than mockery. Because no one questioned it. No one questioned me. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. Chris walked a few steps behind me, not beside me. Watching. Letting me feel alone. "Good," he murmured when we passed the display boards. "They see you." Then I heard my name. My old name. I froze. A classmate, someone who had known me for years, stood near the refreshment table, staring. Confusion crossed their face. Then realization. Then hesitation. They opened their mouth. My breath caught. My fingers tightened around my bag. Every instinct screamed run. But Chris's voice floated calmly behind me. "Smile. You're fine." I turned. And smiled. Soft. Natural. Controlled. "Hi," I said, my voice light, feminine, steady. The classmate blinked. "Oh, sorry. I thought you were someone else." A pause. Then a nervous laugh. "Never mind." They walked away. My knees almost buckled. I hadn't just survived. I had passed. Chris didn't let me recover. He guided me straight into the center of the event, right where the attention was thickest. "Go talk," he whispered. "Participate. Exist." I did. I spoke to teachers. I laughed at jokes. I accepted compliments about my outfit without flinching. Every second felt unreal. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I was calm. And the worst part? It wasn't hard anymore. My gestures came naturally. My expressions felt honest. My body responded without hesitation. The girl wasn't an act anymore. She was automatic. Then someone pulled out a phone. Not to record. Just to take pictures of the event. But the lens passed over me. Paused. Adjusted. Clicked. My chest tightened. That image, me, like this, was real now. Permanent. Chris leaned close. "This is the point," he said quietly. "Once you're seen, you can't go back the same way." I finally looked at him, not with fear, but with clarity. "You planned this," I said. He didn't deny it. "You needed to see how easy it would be," he replied. "And how impossible it would be to forget." Later, in the restroom, I locked myself into a stall and stared at my reflection. The girl stared back. Not panicked. Not confused. Just aware. I touched my cheek. Adjusted my hair. Straightened my blouse. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing myself. I felt like I was becoming something. And that terrified me more than humiliation ever could. When I stepped back out, Chris was waiting. "You did beautifully," he said. I swallowed. "What happens now?" He smiled, but there was something different in it. "That," he said, "depends on you." The noise of the event swelled around us. People passed. Laughter echoed. Life continued. But I knew something had shifted. The balance. The control. The line between who I was and who I'd become. And I realized this wasn't the climax of a prank. It was the climax of a transformation. The event was winding down, but my mind wasn't. My heart still hammered, adrenaline still coursed through every vein. I had survived. I had walked through the crowd as the feminized version of myself, and no one had openly mocked me. In fact, people hadn't really reacted at all. It was almost more terrifying that they'd accepted it without question. Chris leaned against the edge of the hallway, eyes glinting with that familiar mix of amusement and authority. He had watched me like a hawk all day, guiding, correcting, pushing, but never physically forcing. The power he had over me was invisible, psychological, and somehow infinitely more terrifying. "You did well today," he said quietly. His eyes lingered, intense. "Better than I even expected." I swallowed hard. What now?" His grin widened slightly, but there was a hint of something darker lurking behind it. "Now," he said, "you decide. You can go back, or you can move forward." I froze. His words weren't just casual encouragement, they were a challenge, a trap, and a test all at once. I realized that this wasn't just about public exposure anymore. It wasn't just about dressing up, performing, or even submitting to his guidance. Chris had stripped away my old identity, and the girl staring back at me from mirrors, reflections, and passing windows wasn't going anywhere. My hands shook slightly as I touched my blouse, smoothing out a wrinkle. I wanted to run. I wanted to rip off the wig, the skirt, the heels, and reclaim the life I had before. But even as that thought formed, another surged stronger. The thrill, the exhilaration, the undeniable sense of being seen and admired in a way I had never experienced before. I don't know if I can," I started. "Sure," Chris interrupted softly, stepping closer. "There's no rush. You'll know soon enough. But remember, once you embrace it fully, there's no turning back." I glanced around the hallway. The noise of the winding down event echoed faintly. People were packing up, chatting in small groups, completely oblivious to the storm inside me. My feminized self had performed flawlessly. I had survived scrutiny, humiliation, and even the potential judgment of friends and strangers alike. And yet, the internal struggle had never been more intense. The mirror by the wall caught my attention. I couldn't resist it. The girl looking back at me was impossible to ignore. Soft, confident, delicate. But my eyes, my expression, still held a flicker of the old me. A flicker of fear, uncertainty, hesitation. I realized that I was literally standing at the crossroads of two identities. Chris's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, not possessive, but grounding. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic. Look at her, Jordan. That's you. Stronger, softer, more alive than you were before. But it's your choice. Mine ended a long time ago. I could feel my pulse in my throat. This wasn't just about clothing or makeup. This was about control, identity, and desire. And Chris had put the power entirely in my hands, at least in words. My mind raced. Could I really go back? Could I reclaim my old identity after tasting this? Or had the transformation reached a point where reversal was impossible, even if I wanted it? I took a step back, then forward, then another, feeling the gentle sway of my hips in those familiar heels. Every movement reminded me of everything I had learned, everything Chris had taught me, every subtle adjustment that had made the girl in the mirror real. And then it hit me. It wasn't just a choice about clothing. It wasn't about acting or pretending. It was about who I wanted to be, and whether I was ready to let go of who I used to be. Chris's gaze softened, just slightly, as if he could see the storm inside me. Decide soon, he whispered. Before the moment passes. The hallway felt impossibly quiet, despite the murmurs of the last few stragglers. My reflection stared at me, unwavering, flawless, yet demanding an answer. I swallowed. I took a deep breath. And that's when the doors at the far end of the hall creaked open. A familiar figure appeared, someone who had known me before all of this. Someone who might recognize the girl I had become. Someone who could expose everything. My heart stopped. Chris's smirk returned, sharper this time. Looks like your choice just got a lot harder. I froze. Every instinct screamed. Run. Hide. Undo. But a part of me, the part that had reveled in this transformation, the thrill, the submission, the newfound confidence, quivered with anticipation. The screen fades to black.